Team of Two, Gold and Black Live, Kyle Charters, Alan Karpick, Jim Everett. Jim, are you there?
I am here. Thanks, Kyle.
Well, we are glad that you are here, and I think that the fact that you're calling from Los Angeles is near your lunch hour, but in your business you're always working, so that's a good thing. But welcome to the show, and I don't know if anybody else has called you this week, but they want to take you down memory lane. Of course, Jim, the quarterback of Purdue, to its last win and only win in Indianapolis over Notre Dame, because it's the only time they ever played back in 1984 in the Hoosier Dome. Anybody else been hitting you up to relive that great experience?
Yeah, there was some fellows up in South Bend that were trying to give me a call, but I wouldn't call them back, so I only talked to you guys.
So, as the story goes, there are some interesting parallels to this week and 30 years ago, because there is some debate on who will be Purdue's starting quarterback. And back in the day, there was at least some debate, at least in the media's eyes, as I recall, at least what was being printed in the paper, between yourself and Doug Downing. How much in advance of that game did you really know that you were going to be the guy against the Fighting Irish?
Well, I think coming out of camp, I knew I'd be the guy, but I knew, Leon Burtonette was the head coach at the time, and he basically stated that I was on a short leash. I mean, that was the way. And he told me that back in the spring. He goes, hey, I've got these two blue-chip All-American guys coming in, and if you can't earn the job, then we're going with youth. And, give them every opportunity, because at the time I was a senior. Later, I got the red shirt because of a technicality that both, Chuck Long and Jack Trudeau and I all took advantage of. But anyways, long story short, it was like, okay, I get to show, down the Hoosier Dome what I got against number 2 ranked Notre Dame.
And you did. Though you guys got behind 14-3, in a team that the year before, I think you finished 3-7-1, and you had a couple starts in that year, did not go as well for the team as a whole. How in the heck did you guys summon up the confidence to get the job done and come back when Notre Dame, or in the early parts of that game, after the initial fumble to start the game, looked like they were going to dominate the football game?
Yeah. It's been so many years ago. I just know that our team that we went through, adversity at different times, and every team does. I know at the preseason or during camp that Leon brought a guy named Fred Mills in.
Yeah.
And he specifically was there to work with us. It was just brain work. It wasn't anything about, lifting more or running more or throwing more. It was about believing more. And that, I attribute a lot to, the psychology part of making sure that we were mentally tough. And it's the same things I'm hearing from what Daryl's doing with the team, as far as, hey guys, you're as physical as everybody. You're as fast as everybody. But let's get mentally tougher than everybody. And that's what I'm seeing, I'm reading. And so some of the parallels I'm seeing with the team that they're doing, this year, reminds me a lot of, like you said, the parallels 30 years ago.
Hey, Jim, what sort of personality does a team need to take on when it hasn't experienced a lot of success and is looking for something to spark it on the field? Is there anything that you can draw from your past, whether it's personalities of individuals or as a team as a whole?
I mean, it is a team game, so let's not forget this. But it's about you making your teammate better, and and having belief. And I think that it starts on both. It has to have a spark on both sides, and I think that's what Purdue's looking for right now. Is there needs to be a spark on the defensive side of the ball that people can start rallying around, and they start shutting down drives, and then let the offense spark some things there too. But as far as from what I can tell, that they got to get in a position where they get some threes and outs, and they start building that confidence that they can stop anybody, because the schedule's not going to get any easier as we go through the year. And so, I mean, whoever's going to be that guy carrying the torch, and believe it or not, we had a guy who probably wasn't as physical as maybe a middle linebacker, would be, but his name was Kevin Sumlin. And I don't need to tell you how successful he's been after the game, but he was the type of guy that could, make guys around him better. Not just, and he just would never give up. And he still never gives up.
you know, you look at that team and you start to count the guys that actually spent some time in the league, and there I think were 6 on the starting lineup. When you think of yourself, Ray Wallace, Bruce King, on down the line to Rodney Carter, and then of course on defense you had a Hall of Famer in Rod Woodson. Fred Strickland played, I think it was his first game there, but you had a team that had talent. Did you feel that coming in, that even after the '83 season, that, you know, this is a team that just needs to find a way to reach its capacity and reach its potential? Was it as simple as that, and from an attitude change?
We had a lot of personnel changes from, you know, the years you're talking about in '83. We had Scott Campbell leave. We
Right.
had Cliff Benson leave. We had, you know, a number of linemen. So it was about a bunch of us new guys starting a new program, I felt. Of course, Rod Woodson, I think, was a freshman at that point, so no one had any clue about his, you know, capability. We know he was, I think, Mr. Indiana as far as football, but no one knew the impact he could make. And still, as a freshman, he had a huge learning curve to go through. And even I talked about him, you know, his first 2 years and how much he would fight on run fakes and stuff. And so, you know, he grew a lot. But we had no clue that he was going to be that player. But there was a lot of, you know, seniors and fifth-year guys that, you know, just made some major contributions. Skamenski at center, and guys like this that I feel that, you know, played to the best of their ability, but were just fantastic teammates.
The quarterbacks always remember plays. And what do you remember from that game? Was it I remember the great pass to Jeff Price, 40-yarder, I think, for a touchdown. But what do you remember from that game specifically? Or was it Don Baldwin's interception of Steve Berline at the end? What do you recall?
Gosh, you really, I'm gonna bring this up. We were, you know, a little bit behind, and we started coming, and we made a game of it. And then, of course, I think I threw a touchdown at Jeff Price, and I remember not only the touchdown, you know, getting the score, and, you know, the ball was put where it needed to be, made the catch, you know, we took the lead. I remember looking at the sideline, not our sideline, their sideline. They looked like a beaten team, and it looked chaotic over there. And at the time, the head coach was you probably have it.
Jerry Faust.
Jerry Faust. Okay, you know, the high school coach from Moeller, and they were just. I think they were in the mindset that they should win like 48-0, and I think they were prepared for that, but they were not prepared to what we handed them, and you could see it on their sideline. I can remember that distinctively. It looked like a Chinese fire drill over there.
Yeah. And so you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about bulletin board material anymore. It's been 30 years. You're good. So
I'm good.
Statute of limitations. You're fine.
I'm good friends with Steve Berline. Matter of fact, he just lives down the road. So
yeah.
I mean, we constantly badger about, you know, Jerry Faust, and, you know, he had a wonderful career. But we always bring back the Notre Dame games, and, you know, they had a lot of success, but. You know, he'll never live down the fact that we got him there in the hoot.
Yeah, and you got him your senior year as well.
Hey, Jim, just wanted to ask you a couple of things about the NFL. I remember when you were on with us here a few years ago when you were in town for the Cradle of Quarterbacks thing, and you talked a little about the concussion issue. And I think since then, you know, it's become even a bigger story. Just how big a story is that, and how much has the game changed, you think, over the last few years, in particular, as the NFL has tried to deal with that, I suppose, the best they can?
Well, I mean, it's a contact sport, so let's not, you know, it is what it's going to be. But I was even watching the ball game last night with Pittsburgh and Baltimore, and there was a couple times where the receivers were just in a very vulnerable position, and.
Yeah.
You know, the Steelers got the penalty flag, but, you know, that's how much the game's changed to where, you know, they're really trying to protect the guy that can't protect himself, and there's really no need to go helmet to helmet, you know, to bring a guy down to, you know, call it intimidation, call it whatever you do. But during our days, it was you just go across the middle and get your head taken off, and it was a legal hit. So. And I remember my senior year talking about against Notre Dame. I did play with some sort of a concuss, I believe. There was a part in the game that I remember being a little dizzy, and I think I dove for a first touchdown and, made some contact, but after that I was a little dizzy for a while. But, we finished up the game and it worked out well, and that's how a lot of players play throughout the NFL. I mean, you could get dinged, and you don't want to let your teammates down. So no matter what they do in the game, the player is still going to have to monitor himself, and, the competition's a lot of motivation to get out there. And, if you're not out there, someone else is taking your job.
You look at that, and you look at all the attention played to that, and then you also go back to your days. And one of the big topics in college football these days is unionization, or the ability to make student athletes whole, so to speak. How would you view that based on your experience, and how do you see what big time college athletics needs to do to be able to make it right for the student athletes, especially the football guys?
Well, we're getting into labels here. We're getting into stereotypes. And I want to try to avoid. First of all, I love the NFL. I love what they're trying to do. I love the NCAA and what they do for athletes and give them opportunities. I also know for a fact that football programs, and we could talk about this a little bit, bring a lot of dough to the university. So how that's going to ever change, or how that would ever, there's going to be a lot of friction as far as making any bit of changes. I mean, we can see that in the playoff system. The Bulls didn't want to lose their money. The teams didn't want to lose their money. So when you start talking about players and unions and this and that, then the NCAA gets out of control. But if you want my honest opinion about it, the NCAA is the biggest monopoly on the planet.
Yeah.
They say goes. And these guys call them student athletes or call them athlete students, whatever. I mean, you've got to, there's not a AAA system for football. The AAA system is the NCAA, and that's just frankly where we're at. And there's some people that might not have the grades or ability or even that to, be the student athlete, but they don't get the opportunity to play. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different issues going into this. I think the NCAA is fun. I think the system's great. So don't get me wrong, but there is not a group representation for the player, for the athlete. There's a student athlete, and it's a. I don't know if I'm saying this correctly. There's a fine line to where, it's a business, but then they're students. So, and it's a tightrope, to walk. Just like the playoff system. Is 4 teams enough? Should it be 8 teams? Should it be 16? Where does the revenue from? I mean, they're just tough decisions, and until there's a AAA football system set up that kids can go to, the NCAA is it.
We've got a couple of questions from fans, but I wanted to ask one more of you, and that being evaluating quarterbacks or watching quarterbacks today. Obviously a Purdue graduate, and Drew Brees is, and I think he talked about this a couple of years ago. But there's some guys out there that are really phenomenal, as they were when you played. But what do you see there in terms of? Is there a guy out there that you're watching that's young that you really like, that we may start to hear a lot more about, it will become the next elite quarterback in the NFL in your view?
Boy, you know what? That's such a hard question, and quarterback position is so tricky. I mean, you take a guy like a Vince Young, for example, who is just a tremendous athlete, high pick, and why he's still not playing is beyond me. And then we take a guy like Sam Bradford, who I would have said, gosh, he's a freshman starting at Oklahoma. He's going to be such a terrific pro, and I still believe he still can, but, it just hasn't worked out to where, you go to the other end of the spectrum, you take a guy like Kurt Warner, who was bagging groceries, and he comes out and wins Super Bowl trophies. So, like, it's like artwork. Whoever can pick the Van Gogh out of the box is it. But the guy that, we're talking about, Drew Brees, I mean, what a situation he's been through, and it has not been, a cakewalk for his career. I mean, here he goes down to San Diego, he's the leader, then all of a sudden Philip Rivers comes in, and then Drew hurts his shoulder, and he's shipped out. But a tribute to him and his toughness, and he's Hall of Fame quarterback, and I just think that has a lot to do with interior incentive from the inside. And I don't know if people can measure that, at combines. And, a guy like Steve Young, who comes out, he's going to will himself into wins. You know, you saw Steve Young at Tampa Bay was different than the Steve Young at San Francisco.
Yeah.
So I bring these guys up because they're all terrific players, and I think Vince Young could be a terrific player in the right system if he had the inside part of his drive wanting to be.
All right.
One question we had too from Joe, in terms of complicated offenses, and obviously you guys ran a pretty detailed scheme under Jim Coletto your junior year, and then I think Bob Spoo your senior year. But you had is it a lot more complicated than it was when you played in the college game? Do you feel, and is that tougher for younger guys to be able to pick up systems in your view?
Okay, that's a great question. The thing about when I came out from a little school in New Mexico, a big school in New Mexico, but to come to Purdue, that was a tougher jump than for me from going from Purdue to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there's restrictions on how much time you can practice and this and that. So, to learn a pro offense that Mark Herman was running, being some country kid coming in, I was lost. I mean, I had no clue. I mean, there was no zone reading or man zone option stuff. It was pro offense, and that was a huge leap. And so for guys to learn that system, you can't expect freshmen to excel, and that's why I see young quarterbacks. I see a bunch of freshmen and sophomore on the roster. You have to taper your expectations of what you can get done, what you can audible. I mean, a little different than when Peyton Manning maybe first year in the league, and now he's 20th year in the league or whatever. I mean, you got to have different expectations on what you can get done and change it on the line. I think the offense is going to the pistol, 4 wide. I think that behooves a little simpler, simpler offense for people to be able to pick up. It's still complex. Don't get me wrong, but it's they're doing a lot more of that in high school, which translates a little bit more into college. Now, with that being said, I recruited Jeff George. I went down and watched his game down in Indianapolis when they played for the championship his senior year. And I was amazed because he was running the exact same stuff we were. And I'm like, this kid's automatic. I mean, he's going to be something else because he's doing all the reads. He's doing, check downs. I couldn't imagine doing that at age 18, and he was. And, tribute to him, he had all the talent in the world. He had great coaching. And then, we get down the road, and, did he have the interior drive to want to be the Hall of Fame quarterback? I don't, that again gets down to how do you measure heart?
Yeah.
So, it can look good, but, man, it's like the Van Gogh. And I don't mean to go back to that picky and quarterback, but it's, some of it's some luck.
Yeah.
And Purdue could use a little bit of that tomorrow when the Boilermakers take on Notre Dame. Jim, thanks so much for your time, and we always appreciate your desire and ability to come on our show, and we'll look forward to talking to you down the road. Maybe when the Boilermakers are making a run at the division championship in the Big Ten. Who knows?
That would be great. I think October is going to be a pivotal month, and let's all chant defense. All right? Thanks, guys, for having me on.
Sounds good. Thanks. All right. Appreciate it. All right. We're going to take a short break and come back with Lou Emoji and Stacy Clarity, and we'll talk a little bit about Notre Dame Purdue history, but also obviously the Fighting Irish, and get a chance to break down Notre Dame a little bit further in our final segment of Gold and Black Live.